Many Augusta neighborhoods have nicknames, and one of the most unique, one of the most funny, and one of the most accurately descriptive no longer exists. I'm talking of Frog Hollow. For those of you who don't know, Frog Hollow was a neighborhood, much like Harrisburg, that spread out on the flat area currently occupied by University Hospital and the many buildings that surround it. During the Civil War, John and Charlotte Silcox turned a marshy area into a residential section when they subdivided it into lots. By 1962, the Hollow had grown to 94 acres with 508 homes. Old aerial photographs show hundreds of these houses and many streets. The neighborhood's boundaries were generally 13th and 15th Streets along Walton Way to Harper Street. It was a community mostly inhabited by cotton mill workers and city employees and existed from 1863 until 1968. Frog Hollow is unique. Although the name was not official, it came into general use in the early 1900s. The first time the phrase Frog Hollow appears in the Chronicle actually refers to its baseball team, the Frog Hollow Sluggers. They were one of Augusta's many youth league teams which featured such names as the Broadway Sluggers, the Young Giants, and the Nine Devils. But why frogs? The consensus is the name came from a large frog pond in what had been a swamp near what was called the Augusta Somerville Plank Road. Today we call it Walton Way. In his excellent work on Frog Hollow, James S. Dorrell writes that the nickname was inspired by the sounds from the pond near what is now the Medical College Annex, or the old Sears store, which was known to attract large gatherings of noisy frogs. Frog Hollow was just one of many old Augusta neighborhoods that is no more. Johnny Battle, the Chronicle's legendary city editor for much of the previous century, recalls such neighborhood identities in a 1961 news story. The first ward, what we now call Old Town, was Pinch Gut. The second was Shake Rag, which was known for its combative Irish neighborhood. And if you really wanted an Irish neighborhood, that would be the third ward. So Irish, they called it Dublin. Frog Hollow was in the old Fourth Ward, and in fact it might have been the most civil part of the old Fourth Ward because the north part of the Fourth Ward was referred to as the Bloody 400. Infighting, outfighting, and bare knuckles marked nearly every election day, Battle wrote. The Fifth Ward was Harrisburg, on the end closest to downtown, and the west end going west after leaving the King Mill Bridge at Broad. And Battle said one had to fight every inch of the way to get elected to anything. Elections, he said, were frequently contested because in the 1st, 4th, and 5th wards, a voter dropped his vote into the ballot box, and sometime it was 24 hours before the polls closed before the results were known. There was some holding out, waiting to hear the outcome, in other words, and in some instances, just plain stealing. Stealing in politics? In Augusta? Well, if anything got stolen, it was probably Frog Hollow. In 1962, Augusta voters decided to give $5 million to build a new university hospital. And by 1968, the last family had moved out of the Frog Hollow neighborhood. Everything's gone. But on a late summer night, if you listen real close, maybe you can still hear the frogs.